Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but when it comes to MotoGP photography, there's only one true master, and that's Rob Gray, aka Polarity Photo. On the Paddock Pass Podcast this week, we talk snapping MotoGP. Depressingly for us, they say a picture speaks 1,000 words. On this Paddock Pass Podcast, we've decided to enlist the services of one of the very best in MotoGP and motorcycle racing. Rob Gray, otherwise known as Polarity Photo, joining Adam Wheeler, Neil Morrison, and David Emmett on this show. Good morning, Rob.
Morning, guys. Thank you for having me.
We want to talk about some of the fantastic work that you do and have been doing in MotoGP for quite a while now. And we think that MotoGP photography is something that kind of, I think, fascinates a lot of fans because it's very easy to get hold of video access now to, have a consumption of the sport through social media, but the way that you portray the sport or the series is something I think, that allows a lot of creativity, but also must be incredibly difficult. On this podcast, we want to talk a bit about your job, a little bit how you got into the role, and also some of the advantages and disadvantages, perhaps, of your profession. So first of all, Rob, just tell us how long have you been in MotoGP?
Wow. Okay. So do you know what? It doesn't feel that long ago that people used to introduce me as up and coming. So that's already quite telling, My first full season would have been 2021. But prior to that, obviously we had the COVID season, so you can't really, it's not quite a normal season. But prior to that, I was doing a few rounds, and my first ever round would have been 2016. As media. And then at that point I had let's say a normal job, and I was saving up money to then come to more rounds the next year, and then a few more the next year, just trying to meet the right people, I guess, and get enough good contacts to make a full season.
When did you lose the up and coming tag, Rob?
I don't know. I think I might have just realized it today.
Breaking news, world exclusive. Rob Gray no longer up and coming.
Yeah. Well, that's quite sad, isn't it?
Yeah, but it just means you're established at the pinnacle of the sport, Rob.
You know what, though? I don't care about the labels and stuff like that, but what does drive me is trying to continue to move things forward. And I really don't like if I felt like I was taking the same pictures every year, then the tag would bother me. But as long as I feel like I'm still changing and I'm kind of still growing and improving at what I do, then I'm still up and coming to me.
I actually asked this of BT, a comedian who also writes for an American magazine, Comes to Races. How do you, telling the same jokes all the time must be really difficult to me. I love jokes, but I would hate to tell the same joke over and over and over again. And a lot of MotoGP photography is, you need certain shots.
Yes,
certain shots
bike going around a corner.
Yeah, bike going around a corner. Yes.
Yeah,
oh, look, another bike going around a corner. So how do you keep it interesting and fresh? Because I genuinely, I love your photography. I'm not just saying this because I know you, but you are the best photographer in the paddock. With Cormac's wife, Sienna, being the second, of course. But how do you stop your stock photos from getting stale?
Great question. And it's a balance that we all have to work with, right? So it kind of depends also. It's very personal down to each individual as to what really drives them, what they like doing. Me personally, when I come back from a race weekend, I want to make sure that the client is happy, that they have got really good coverage, really good variety, really good quality, that the right moments were there for them, and that we fulfilled all of their needs and they were able to go ahead and kind of use the content in all of their intended ways. The next thing for me is, did I create something cool? Did I make something that I'm quite proud of that's different? And the more you kind of do the same thing each year, the harder that becomes. Because let's say, for example, in year 2 or whatever, if you'd have asked me, what's that what's your favorite shot from the weekend, or what's the shot you really want? It might be elbow down at Lukey Heights at Phillip Island, right? You know, just real classic racing shot, clean background, aggressive rider stance, everything really nice in focus, maybe a bit of motion from a slow shutter. But now for me and for many others who've, you know, done it year after year, that becomes more bread and butter, right? Because you have to get that photo. You need to get that for the clients. So then finding that like thing that excites you or that you're really proud of, or in creating something different, the window gets kind of smaller and smaller. But I think that's the same with any art or anything that you're continually working at, right?
Just for some context before we move on, Rob, can you just let sort of viewers and listeners of the podcast know where they can see your work? Just as a quick tip, anybody who sees the thumbnails of the Paddock Pass podcast, and these are, you know, from Rob's archive, which can be found sort of on the KTM. I mean, you've been shooting for KTM for a couple of years through their service. But the Polarity Photo Instagram, if people just go and search that, then you'll get a real snapshot of what Rob is about. I think it's Instagram, of course, is a bit of a treasure trove when it comes to the visual side, but I think for professional photographers, it's really is a great shop window to show off, you know, who you are, what you can do, how you see the world. And you know, I still show people your Instagram to this day, Rob, because it's amazing. So you know, if people again digesting this podcast, go to Polarity Photo on Instagram to grab a look. But in terms of your paddock work, who are you sort of servicing?
So predominantly it's Red Bull KTM. That's kind of like my main client, and obviously that goes right across all three classes. I also work and shoot for Fabio Quartararo. That's directly with him, and then a few of the other brands and sponsors in the sport as well. So, for instance, Alpine Stars, Oakley, and a few others. So yeah, and just quickly on the Instagram side of things, it kind of links in with what Dave was saying, because once I come home from that race weekend, I've delivered everything, right, more or less. I've sent everything to either the Red Bull KTM library or direct to Alpine Stars or whoever it might be. And so ideally, if I've done my job well, everyone has the pictures. There might be a few clients here and there that we've agreed that I'm delivering stuff on a Monday after a race, and I have to pick up those. But when it comes to then posting on Instagram, that's really for me. That is one of my outlets where I'm like, okay, well, what's the stuff that I'm really proud of? So that's very much more of the creative stuff and more of the things that I think I want to share more of. So yeah, please do check it out.
Rob, I'm pretty sure that there's quite a few people that will be listening to this who have a passing interest in photography, or maybe even a passionate interest, and would show up at a racetrack. Maybe it's going to Coda for MotoGP and would take some photos from the stands, and would like to know a little bit more about how you actually get into it. I mean, you mentioned some of the clients that you have there. Those didn't just arrive overnight. I assume it took some time to build that up. So how do you make it into the MotoGP paddock as a photographer? Because from what I gather, it's a competitive field, a competitive business, and it could be quite cutthroat.
Yeah, it is competitive, but I wouldn't want that to dissuade anyone, right? So I think with photography, and this isn't just about MotoGP, this is just in general. Nowadays, you really have to go and kind of do the job before you get the job. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're interested in shooting bikes and you want to take really cool bike content, then don't wait for, you can't just go and apply for a job at Red Bull or something, but just go and do it. Maybe you've got a friend with a street bike. You can then go and create your own shoot. You don't even need them to be riding it. You can do some really cool static stuff. You need to go out and shoot as much as possible. And the more you do that, the more you start to build up your portfolio, you build up your skills, and you start to make these small little connections. There's so many nerdy things that I have done when it comes to photography in my time to try and kind of get better and to meet the right people. I'll give you a really small example, one that's just popped into my head, but I was really into mountain biking for quite a while. And even when I bought, let's say, a new pair of goggles, which is very, very sad, but I would do a full photo shoot of them. And I built like this mini kind of studio, you know, in my front room, a tiny little box. And I put some colored lights on there, and I was just messing around and took some cool pictures, and I posted them on Instagram, and that brand got in touch with me, and then they sent me some more goggles. And it's that type of thing that I'm talking about. And what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter on the scale of it. It doesn't matter if it's your next door neighbor or a family member or a friend who's got a bike. Go out one evening, wait till, you know, the last couple of hours of light, find a cool little quiet spot, do some nice pictures, rinse and repeat, like keep doing that sort of thing. And more specifically on your question about MotoGP, again, I mean, it took me a long time. I was out shooting at racetracks, British Superbikes, touring cars, whatever, World Superbikes, just as a spectator for quite a long time, just shooting through the fence, just kind of honing the craft. But with MotoGP, I guess the key thing that people, perhaps not everybody knows, is that in order to be media accredited, you need to be working for the media. So you're not asking MotoGP, can I please work for you? You're actually trying to go and find a media outlet that needs your images. And that's a little distinction that maybe not everybody knows about. So for example, maybe there's a really cool magazine, or maybe a good, like a website with a lot of viewers or something, which you might want to try and provide content to them. It's those people really that you need to get on board, because if you have their backing, then essentially what happens is you can then get them to write you a letter to say, hey, we would like Rob to be accredited for this event in order for him to supply us with the images we need to do our stories, whatever it might be. So that's kind of like the angle is more like trying to find the right media outlet to support you. And again, going back to my original point, I think the more you go out and take photos, the more connections you make with different people, the easier that then becomes. And I'm sorry to anyone listening that was hoping it was going to be like a really quick answer, or just, you know, click this button and apply here. But that very rarely happens. And the best advice I can give is to get out there and take cool pictures, do things that you enjoy, because I promise you, you know, things will happen if you go and do that. But you can't sit there and wait for it.
I think that describes a little bit of the media landscape generally. I mean, over the last half a decade, Rob, do you see like the role of photography changing? Because there are photographers who have switched to doing video content because that seems to be the most in-demand form of media currently. I know MotoGP has very tight restrictions on what you can do with video, but there is every chance that could loosen up a little bit. The work that you're doing, has it kind of switched in the last few years in terms of the emphasis that the clients want?
I can see it happening. I can see the landscape shifting, yes. It has not reached me yet personally. So, and what I mean by that is like what the clients are requesting from me hasn't really changed. That in fact, the only thing that's really kind of changed in the last 5 to 6 years is the emphasis of the types of pictures that they want. But teams are now putting more budget into videos. As you say, the restrictions in MotoGP are very tight. Like, for example, I'm not allowed to record video. I'm not allowed to, I should clarify, I'm not allowed to share or post any video.
Yeah.
So, and technically anyone accredited for that event, unless they have specific permission to do so, they also cannot share video. It has to be sent to the teams, and then the teams can post it via their official channels. So yes, I can see that the teams are putting more energy and more budget into video creation now, and I think that's going to continue and keep rising. I do believe that there will be some pressure in the future for the video restrictions to be loosened slightly. I do think that, you know, that requires quite a big cultural change, because in the past it's been linked to the concern over the, you know, TV rights and kind of the overlap there and the potential for those deals to have less value. But I do think that needs to change, and I think one day it will. It's quite a monumental change.
Yeah, but I think there's already been a big change? Because I mean, like, well, a decade ago, if you turned up and tried to film something, then they would take you outside and shoot you, pretty much. Whereas now you can actually get permission, but you do have to go through the appropriate channels and all the rest of that.
You need a checkbook.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what's your biggest challenge as a photographer? I mean, the business side is always, I mean, to me, the biggest challenges for working in the paddock is actually finding a way to make money. That's the most difficult thing. But let's say we've got that. What do you enjoy about it, and what's the most difficult thing about it? What are the obstacles that are put in your way?
I'd say the most difficult. There's a couple of things. Which
sharing a media center with journalists and not having enough deck space.
Yeah, being near you guys is just terrible. You know, I'm joking, of course. No, one thing that's really makes the job a lot harder is this kind of continual squeezing of the time that we have to get things done. So a good example would be when they introduced the sprint races. So usually on a Saturday, I would get to what used to be FP4, and hopefully, all things being well, I'd be in a pretty good position in terms of checking a lot of the boxes that I need to in terms of the images I've taken. And sometimes I could use that time creatively to try something and potentially get nothing. You know, sometimes when you're trying something super creative or a bit risky, or if the success rate is low, you can come away with nothing after putting 20 minutes into it. But over time, that little window that we had, that 20 minutes here or 15 minutes there, has just been squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And so the constant tightrope that I feel like I'm on is this need to deliver the bread and butter stuff that the teams need, but also wanting to give them more, something different, something better, something that stands out. Because even though, of course, they need the shots that they need that bread and butter stuff. The moment you give them that really special one, you can see they're like, oh, wow, this is super cool. Like, I can't wait to use this. So there is value in those things still, but finding the time that you're willing to lose in potentially getting it wrong and not getting the shot is almost impossible now. And that's the bit that I miss, is that there's no window really for error. You just have to get out there, shoot, and get the images sent.
So that, like, the tightening window of or the just the fact that the whole weekend is much busier with the sprint race and all the rest of it now is also having an impact on you. I mean, another question. I've seen, like, photography change. You talk about the bread and butter shots. I mean, it used to be most of the pictures I saw were just very static, rider on bike at lean angle through corner. And now it seems like, and it's especially been sort of like the past sort of 10, 15 years or so, that there's been a lot more creativity. There's been a lot more emphasis on making a pretty picture and not a functional picture, if you know what I mean. I mean, obviously there are certain criteria. The sponsor's logo has to be in focus, for example. But how have you seen photography change since you've been doing this?
Yeah, it's a good observation, and I feel really, really connected to that, because if you think, when I first started coming into the paddock, I didn't have any of these major clients or any obligations. So when you first join, this is the same for anyone really who first starts coming in, they actually have the most free and the most creative time versus someone they have to deliver for. So I actually found, when I first started, I was like, well, I don't want to take necessarily the same pictures as everyone else. I don't know. But obviously I was still learning, and I did still want that elbow down shot at Lukey Heights, but it didn't matter if I spent 40 minutes trying to get something crazy, because no one was I didn't need to then turn up and deliver loads of images to a client.
Yeah.
I only had, at the time when I first started, I was doing a few bits for, I think it was Bike Sport News, and a couple of other websites, but it was really kind of like end of the day, send us some pictures sort of stuff. So I think what's happened is there's a combination of people like myself coming in and being like, well, I don't have to take pictures like you. I can do whatever I want, right? And then that slowly starts becoming like, oh wow, that these other types of pictures are available. Like, how do we get those? And that's when you start getting inquiries, kind of from potential clients, and that's saying like, oh, this is quite cool. We haven't seen this before. At least that's what was happening with me. The other thing is the improvement in the technology in the cameras and the amount of data that's in the files. So what I mean by that is that the cameras now are getting so clever that they kind of reduce that skill gap. You can kind of pick something up. The autofocus is amazing. It's better than my reactions are ever going to be. You can get it to track vehicles. Even like the camera I use at the moment, I don't use this particular function, but it'll track your eye movement. And if you want, it'll focus where you're looking. So this has kind of reduced that skill gap. And it means that people starting out can actually get to a certain level really quickly. There's kind of almost less of that building the skill in the early stages, because you can just reach this level of like, well, I can definitely get the focus on the shot. I can definitely get it sharp. And then when you get the files themselves and you start putting them into the editing software, that's become a lot more sophisticated nowadays. And you can achieve quite impressive results a lot quicker than you used to. And I'm seeing that especially now, like obviously we've got AI and things like that coming in. And at least the impact that I can see happening with what I do is that it's just speeding up a lot of things that used to take a bit more time and a lot of people didn't bother with because there isn't time. It's just not, you can't waste time messing around with images. But now you're starting to see like you can click a button and change the background, or you can add blur and all of these things. So you can kind of just take the picture and then start adding in what you didn't do in the camera in the software.
Rob, I have two questions really. So, for example, this year we went to Balloton Park for the second time, and when you still aren't super familiar with the circuit and you show up there, how do you go about making a plan of, how do you essentially know where is going to be good to get the shot and where isn't? And then the kind of second part of the question is, like, we're going to Aragon in 2 weeks' time, a place that I'm sure you've been to 10 plus times. When you know a track, or you think you know a track intimately, how do you, are you still always trying to find like a new place that maybe you haven't tried before? Are you still trying to work out the kind of the secrets, or maybe one or two places that are underused to try and take photos?
Yeah, definitely. So like for a good example, Balloton Park, what we typically do is we check if there's been any other sports, or other motorsports there, because you can kind of get a quick idea of the type of images available. But the most important thing is getting out on the Thursday and getting around the circuit, because a lot of the will this be a good picture, a bad picture? Some of that can just be done on the fly, because you see it with your eyes and you're like, okay, this might make a nice scene. But what you don't know in advance is, how do you access the service road on the track? How do I get to the inside or the outside of the circuit? Where are the tunnels? Where are the gates? How do I get out of the pit lane? Like, those are the really fundamental things.
Logistics.
Yeah, unfortunately. Because if you work all those out on the Thursday, then my approach to something like a new track would be I'd go around it on a Thursday, work out the logistics.
When you say go around it on a Thursday, go around the on track or around the service road, because those are two different things.
I would go around the service road because that's where I'm going to be working. Yeah, that's where I need to know how to get onto. And sometimes some tracks have one way, so it's like, okay, well, what does that mean for me? How long is it going to take for me to get to certain shots? So I would go around the service road and suss that all out. And quite often as well, the riders will be doing their track walks. So I can run onto the track, take a few pictures, jump back onto the scooter and keep moving around. My approach to a new track would be I would work all those logistics out and then come up with where am I going to start from? Where's my first picture on track? And what direction am I going to go in after that? And to be honest, after that, I'll freestyle it. I will move around the circuit. I'll see what I see. It's a wonderful opportunity, because leading into the second question there from Neil, there is a bit of a trap that you ideally want to avoid, and that's just repeating what you did the previous year. And sometimes it's unavoidable because there's not many other options, but ideally you want to try and keep things fresh as much as possible. So yeah, I would go out, I would say, this is where I'm going to start. You know, I always start in the box, by the way. I always start in the garage. So I'd shoot the riders leaving, then I'd run out of the paddock, get to my scooter, get onto the service road and get to the first spot that I'm going to shoot from. And then I would just go off around in that direction and stop when I saw something cool.
At this point in your career, Rob, do you prefer shooting on track or in pit lane? And that's when you don't have, you know, certain people in the way with their hats.
You know what? I love getting pictures of Dave. He's normally like leaning over and eyeballing a motorbike in really close detail. So
really intensely.
Yeah, really intensely.
If he's crouching, then you know he's spotted something. It's like a hunter dog.
I've got some great pictures of Dave actually this season so far. We should include those. I'll put them in my gallery.
Deserves an Instagram page.
Christ, oh God.
Yes. So, what do I prefer? I think nowadays I am leaning much more into the human side of it, and you'll see that if you go on my Instagram and just scroll like the lead images. A lot of them are the people rather than the bikes. But I do still love, you know, the track stuff as well. I think like what the guys do on the bikes is amazing. So I'm always in awe. If I can capture something that really shows off an extreme, then I do really like that. But one thing that I think is fairly common for people like me who love taking pictures of bikes is most of us all start with the track stuff because that's the quote easy bit, if that makes sense. That the bikes don't really care if you don't get a good picture of them. They don't talk back. You don't have to work with them. They don't have weird personalities. You just take a picture of them. And if it's bad, no one else knows, you know? So it's like the easy bit where everybody starts with track stuff. And anyone who starts then trying to make this more of a profession typically has better skills on track than they do with the people and the directing and the setting up of shoots and that sort of thing. That stuff tends to come usually by trial of fire, but later on. So I now take more enjoyment out of those, I think, because, you know, they're a bit harder and they've come kind of later in my career.
Speaking of which, the riders have a barely disguised loathing for journalists because we ask them questions all the time. You have to work with riders, and not just riders, mechanics, everyone. You know, also sometimes you're getting in their way. Riders are forced to do certain, you know, they have certain media commitments. You know, also they've got a new helmet, and so you've got to take 12 trillion photographs of it. How easy is it to work with them? Because you have to maintain a rapport with them. You know, you can't just whether they're a dick or not. You still have to sort of like get along with them. How easy are they to work with? How do you go about like establishing that band, that sort of like bond? Do you sit there and talk mountain bikes with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's no different, I guess, from any job. When you walk into a room, you have to kind of read the room a little bit, and if it's a rider that you already know, then maybe you've already got some rapport going. But yeah, you just have to kind of read the room, and it does depend on the type of shoot that you're doing. Because let's say, for example, it's a new sponsor for a team. That really is kind of like an obligation for the rider. They have to come in and maybe do something, but it's not really for any personal gain for them. So that's one vibe, is maybe they're there because they have to be for 5-10 minutes, versus maybe if they've got a new helmet design that they've put some heart and soul into, you know, getting creative. They normally have a different demeanor about them when you want to go and shoot it, because it's really something that they want. So you do get a mix, but, you know, I haven't had any really bad experiences with any of them. I do know that, like, for example, working with Brad, he's such an amazing guy. He is one of the most down to earth, cool people you'll ever meet. But and I know he won't mind me saying this, but like in the way I kind of sum up Brad is that unless it's going to make him faster,
Exactly.
he's not really, it's not a priority for him. Let's put it that way.
It
He's
certainly
great
isn't.
to work with. Don't get me wrong. He is absolutely amazing to work with, but you just know that really he's ticking the box. He's going to get it done. And then he's going to go back to, looking at the data, working with his team to try and find that extra bit of speed from that race weekend. And then you might then have a shoot with someone like, a good example will be Didier, who really, really sees the value in having his own personal brand. And he's quite creative himself. And he is really nice to work with from that point of view. He's actually very collaborative. And I've done shoots with him where he's asked me about my camera and, he's come up with suggestions and, maybe we should try this, maybe we should try that. So you kind of get different personalities and different levels of interest. And you have to, as a photographer, be quite good at just really quickly reading that vibe and playing with them and working with them, not asking too much, but making sure you get as much as you can out of that little 5-10 minute window that you have with them.
This might be a really obvious question, Rob, so apologies in advance, but you mentioned how you do work with some riders just kind of personally. How does that come about? Is it word of mouth? You mentioned about how Instagram is kind of your place where you kind of put the stuff where you're most proud every Monday or every Tuesday after a race. Do people reach out there? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it is through Instagram. Because when you go and post, typically you'll, tag either the rider or the team. And 9 times out of 10, they won't see it. These guys have got millions of followers and some of them have, community managers managing their accounts and that sort of thing. But in the cases like, for example, Quartararo, he basically just voice noted me. And that was it. He was like, hey, man, I'd like to work together. What do you think? And it's just started from there. And the same with a few others. I won't name any names, but like that's kind of because I've been in the paddock a few years now. I think they've continually seen this annoying Polarity Photo tagging them, I guess, and eventually they probably put 2 and 2 together and be like, "Oh, that's that guy that I see each weekend." Either in Parc Fermé or on the podium. So like
creeping outside a motorhome,
yeah, hanging around. I guess they put 2 and 2 together over time, really, and realised that I work in the paddock, and then it just goes from there. Like, and also because riders pass through teams, and they pass through different, say for example, from Alpine Stars to Dainese or whatever, you end up having these little interactions with them where you do meet them face to face. For example, I've worked with Jorge Martin quite a few times, because he wears 100% glasses, and I've done a few things with him. But then he was also in KTM when he was in Moto2 days as well. So we had like very small, but like quick interactions there. So I guess it's a combination of being at the races, like, consistently, posting consistently, and then just waiting for kind of being in the right place for a bit of an opportunity.
Rob, with all the love and respect, you're a bit nerdy, and for the people that also may be watching or listening to this who are also a bit nerdy about photography, what kind of gear are you using?
So at the moment, that you'll have to stop me talking on this, by the way. So you just have to like hold up.
Aragon's in 2 weeks, Rob. All right, so
so at the moment, I shoot with Canon. My main camera is a Canon R1. So that is basically the flagship sports camera. It's way better than I am. It can do so many things. But that's like the main workhorse. My second camera is actually an R3, which is technically a step down from that, but it's so close to it. It's really, really close. Eventually I will change it for an R1, but I just need to get more work out of it first. The main workhorse lens that I use is a 400mm. It's an f2.8. So that's the big one. If you see any of the photographers on the track holding like a big long lens, mine's a 400. That's quite a common focal length. And it's a prime, so you can't zoom it. It's just one length. And if you need to get closer, you have to walk closer. And if you're too close, then you change lens or you put a different lens on. And then I have a mixture of other bits and pieces. Like my main wide angle lens, which is like the workhorse one, is a 28 to 70 f2. It's an absolute behemoth. But if I get the call to say, hey, Rob, can you come to the garage? There's a guest that we need a picture of, or we've got a new sponsor. Can you get some pictures of this? Or I've even had requests like, can you take pictures of the water in the hospitality for us? Okay. This is the lens I'll take, because it will do pretty much 90% of all the jobs.
Okay. I mean, also speaking from experience and having to carry a little bag of your lens coverings, I think photographers, one of their underrated and unseen skills is their ability to pack and carry shit around.
Yeah, upper body strength.
Yeah, David Emmett's also in this category, you know, judging by the strange cases that he has at races, you know, fish-shaped kind of fabric and whatever else.
Yeah, he does with many mystery bags. I'm always wondering, like, well, what's he got with him?
It's a mini drug dealing operation.
I mean, you're kind of almost military-esque in your packing precision, right? Because, I mean, you're also, for the flyaways or for, you know, back-to-back races, the time frame that you need to travel and to be available means that you're not always, you know, in and out.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm actually not the best person to talk about how to, you know, be efficient with packing, because one, I guess this is really like core of kind of who I am, but the even down to the lens choices that I make, there are smaller lenses that you could get, but I would rather squeeze out every last % of performance and carry more. And that's not very common. I think a lot of people in this role, like what I'm doing, will go for a more sensible choice that packs down easier and is lighter. But I don't. I have the awkward lens. I have this, you know, I have the big cameras because I just want that extra 1 or 2% performance out of them. And
it's also the lighting gear that surprises me. I mean, by
the
God,
lighting,
it's like an entire lighting rig.
That is also a bit of a Rob thing as well. I am known to pack a light or two. So, like in terms of my strategy, Adam, and I hope this isn't too boring, but I'll be quick. So I will try and identify the things that I need at every race that I don't need to bring home with me. So, for example, I like to have a mini studio ready to go. So just a couple of lights, a couple of light stands, a few different reflectors, maybe a couple of little creative tools, some things to create some magic here and there.
Such as?
Well, let me think. So I've used, for example, if anyone listening remembers, Fabio Quartararo had a helmet last year for the film How to Train a Dragon. He had a special collab. And he was like, hey, mate, I've got this helmet. What can we do? So I was like, and I'll admit I haven't seen the film. Sorry about that. But I did look it up and I had a look, and there was some cool imagery, obviously because it's a dragon and it had like fire and smoke and that. So I got this little smoke machine, a very small USB one, and I filled this helmet with it. This is literally in his bedroom in the motorhome. But I filled the helmet with smoke and I put a little RGB light up inside it that made it orange, like flames. So it was like it was glowing inside and like breathing fire. And that was really cool. So that's a good example. And we totally smoked out his bedroom with this USB smoke machine. But yeah, so I've a couple of little bits and pieces in there, things to shape light with. There's a few hidden tools that I haven't got a chance to use yet, which I won't disclose. But I'm really excited. I can't wait for someone to say, hey, Rob, we need a little shoot. Like, got any ideas? I'll be like, yes, I'm ready. I've got some new toys. So I'll keep those in the race truck. I'm very, very lucky that they give me a shelf in the race truck and I can keep like a couple of lights and a few bits there. But I have to keep it quite minimal. It's not just like, you know, because this space is
Rob's photography truck.
Yeah, exactly. I have to be quite respectful of the fact they've given me a little bit of space there.
Yeah, Pete, we might need a new van or perhaps even a full semi.
Please, I don't want to lose my shelf. I need that shelf, okay. And just being practical, some other bits I put on there is like waterproof gear. I keep one set of waterproof gear because if we know it's going to be a shocker of a weekend, I'll get in there. I've got the the Alpine Stars over pants that you ride in, a jacket, and then some waterproof shoes, and that sort of thing. So I'll keep that in there, and then everything else I'll try and condense down into one roller bag. And any photographer who is listening now will know about the Think Tank roller bags. And I've had the same one for about 13 years, and it's been to every single race I've ever been to.
Oh, wow.
And it's still fine. It's still going. So, and that pretty much houses 90% of all the kit, you know, the big stuff, the lenses and the cameras. And you have to lug that one around the world. If you're lucky on the flyaways, what we do is that the teams, obviously they can't have race trucks and flyaways, right? So instead they have freight, and they have these big crates. And sometimes there's a space for Rob's bag on there, if I'm lucky. And in the past, like Brad said, like, oh, you know, put it in mine with the leathers or whatever it might be. So if I do that, then I normally put an air tag in there so I can just see what country it's in and where it's heading, and more importantly, has it arrived where we're going next.
Rob, when we're going to a race, I think we judge how good the event is by a number of different factors, like how good is the track, how good is the racing normally there, the scenery around the track, the food, all these things kind of play a role. For a photographer, what makes working in an event super good, super fun, super easy? And then what is the kind of contrary of that? And at the end, what are your favorite events on the calendar to work, and least favorite?
Okay. So this has changed for me over time. When I first started coming along to MotoGP, it was more about going to places like, Phillip Island, for example, and like really ticking off some of these crazy places. And there were pictures that I had in mind that I wanted to get. Like I keep mentioning, like the Lukey Heights shot. So some of those were like, wow, look, I'm going to these amazing places and I'm seeing these cool tracks and I'm taking these great pictures. But as time has gone on and my responsibilities have gone up and up and up, it started to become a little bit more practical in terms of like, how easy is it to do the job? How well can I deliver what I need to deliver in a timely and quality manner? So a good example of that would be, I'll give you two contrasting ones. So like Jerez, for example, it's very quick and easy. It's not a huge track. There's a good service road. You can ride around that service road and you can stop at the exact point that you want to take the picture. So you can get off the scooter, set up the camera, take the picture, get on your scooter and go to the next spot. And you can get in and out of that circuit really easily. The media center is close to the Parc Fermé and the podiums, because quite often on a Saturday and a Sunday, you're running up and down the stairs to capture all the celebrations and then sending the images as soon as you can. So Jerez, I always end up covering a lot. I get a lot of variety. I get a lot of volume and a lot of pictures, and I don't really miss anything. Okay, so that's in terms of doing the job well, that's a good example. On the flip side to that, the hardest to work at would be somewhere like Silverstone or Phillip Island. Main reason is that there's no service road. There's no road that goes around the outside of the circuit for service people and vehicles. So normally for example, if they need to recover a bike, you'd have recovery vehicles flying along there, or ambulances or marshals or photographers, videographers, that sort of thing. But at places like Silverstone, that road doesn't really exist for much of the circuit. So you have to ride in and amongst the fans. So that slows you down a little bit. And then secondly, it's vast. It's so big, right? So to get from like one good spot to the next, you've actually got quite a few minutes riding time when you're not taking pictures. And the session's only like, say, 40 minutes long. Then when you park, you're not actually at the bit that you want to take the pictures. You've then got to find the access gate, and then you've got to go and walk to the spot that you want to get to. And all of these little kind of delays, they might sound quite small, but add them up over a day, and you do that 15, 20 times, and you're losing about an hour of time that you would normally be taking pictures. And you can see it at the end of the day. You look at what you've taken and it just feels like you're under delivering somehow. And that's just logistical stuff that's slowing you down, really.
Plus, it's a 2-minute lap or a 153, 54, 55. So the bikes aren't coming around that often either. So, you're wasting all that time, and you've got to hang around and hope that the bike you're supposed to be taking a picture of is going to actually turn up.
But that's on the flip side, Rob, you do get to appreciate lots of different types of gravel. Any favourites among the?
You know what? Right, I'm going to use this moment to to sing the praises of actually going to Silverstone, because I think I'm the only person, definitely in the photographer space, that enjoys it. Right, not because it's a great track to work out. I've just explained why it's quite difficult, but it's the one time per year that I can drive to the circuit. I put everything in the car, no flights needed. And on a Sunday night, I get to go home to my own house and stay in my own bed. And typically, I'm in a great mood in Silverstone. Everyone else around me is really not happy. And it's, you guys know this, right? But within the paddock, it's not known as the best round to go to, right?
No.
I think it's difficult for teams because it's expensive. They have to do all the carnets. Even like, for example, hospitality can't take anything they didn't use. They can't take it back out. So it's quite wasteful. And there's a lot of people which, unless they're absolutely essential, will have to just end up working from home for that round. So in the paddock, it's not necessarily the most favourite, but for me, I love it. You'll see me whistling and singing and kind of really enjoying myself going around Silverstone.
Is there we know you love mountain biking. And obviously you love motorbikes. I mean, in our little WhatsApp group, you'll be posting a picture of your DR400 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Is there another sport that you wish you could shoot? Or something else? Maybe not a different sport, because I remember like Scott Jones made some fantastic photographs of motorbikes. And then I saw, which I thought was stunning, and then I saw his landscape photography, and you think, my God, this is, it was just truly exceptional. Is there anything that any other form of photography you would love to do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I did do the Dakar last year. And
how was that?
You'd need a whole nother podcast, Dave. It's easy for me to say now, it was incredible. But honestly, there's so much in there. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and it really sent me back to the beginning. It just made me the most absolute beginner, and that's very humbling for anybody in any profession or anything.
But also good.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, and it's one of the reasons I did it. But I went in at the deep end. I went in and I was working with a big agency, a lot of clients, and these boys did not mess around. It was kind of like going in at the top level, and it was great, but it humbled me a lot, and I found it really difficult, and it brought me back to those times when you're just right at the beginning and you don't know anything, and you have to, like, every night I'm studying the rider and entry list, and I'm color coding everybody and trying to work out what vehicles they're in, because it was trucks, buggies, bikes, all sorts of stuff. And then the next day it was like trying to get the right pictures and then failing, and then being annoyed with myself and working out why it didn't work and what I can do differently. And of course, in the Dakar, they don't come around for another lap if you miss it, right?
Exactly.
So you're kind of messed up. You get one chance per day. And that was like a real eye-opener for me. But without going into too much detail, like, looking back, there's so much more for me to learn and to get from doing something like that. So I do see that as something as very aspirational for me. And I love the photography that comes out of it. I think any time that you're putting yourself in an extreme environment, you're going to get something cool, right? And you could say the same about nature photography or landscape photography. The best ones are the guys that have been camping out in the Arctic for weeks or whatever, and like waiting for that exact moment. And I think it's the same with motorsport. Even you go somewhere into the empty quarter in Saudi, and you're like 16-hour drive away from any airports, and you're camping wild under the stars, and you've got one chance to put yourself in the right position to capture these riders as they come past. it's just, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So that something like that, rally really interests me. Like rally's super cool. I love it when you've got like lots of environment to play with in photography. So, you know, splashing through rivers, jumping over like big gravel roads, in the woods, that sort of stuff. Mountain bike photography, I really like that as well. Again, very environmental. And then finally, like street stuff interests me. I quite like walking around. Like when we go on the flyaways, typically we get a few days here and there in a very strange country.
You mean
And I
like urban stuff, right?
Yeah, kind of
Okay.
urban and or travel, I guess. For example, if I look back over the last few years, when we do the flyaway set of races, obviously we go to Japan and Malaysia and Australia, Qatar and all those sorts of places. Some of my favorite pictures are just the ones I've taken on the off days in between the races, just with my little camera. And like, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's because I don't get the chance to do that thing very often. Maybe that's why I like it a lot.
What's your little camera?
Well, it's in my bag at the moment, but I have many little cameras.
How many cameras
It's like
overall do you own?
All right, hang on a sec, guys. Right, this is a big subject. So I've got many cameras, Neil. I'm looking at them now. For those who are listening, I've got like a gear shelf. So I have, in terms of work cameras, work ones, all right, I have 3, but 2 of them do 99% of the work, all right? And I've just got one which I always have at home in case my camera bag is in the race truck, because I do shoots and stuff in between the races as well, and I need to have something which is good enough. And that one's a very good camera, but it's a little bit less sports orientated. For the nerds out there, it's the R5 II, Canon R5 II, okay? Then when we move into the small camera category, there's actually 3 small categories within that category. Okay, so I have
come on then. What's the ballpark figure?
No. Well, how many?
We're talking 12 here, or what?
Okay, film.
How many spreadsheets do you have, Dave?
Well, hundreds. I mean, like I made about 3 over the weekend.
I reckon I'm at about 8 cameras. Okay, but
that's not bad. That's
including your iPhone.
It's not a problem. So the Leica Q3 is like the luxury, the ultimate small camera. Okay, that's the one that if I could, I would take everywhere. But sometimes circumstances don't allow you to have a camera of that size. Okay, so if I'm then going to go down one size, I would use my Fuji X100V, which I have in front of me here. Is this one. So that's in the small camera category, this is the medium size. And then if there's an occasion that I can't take a camera because I got nowhere to put it, I bring the Ricoh GR4, okay? Because it's really small and you can put it in your pocket. So that's the camera I bring when I can't bring a camera, if that makes any sense.
Isn't it better to use your phone, Rob? Isn't that sort of also the discussion on the table for the way that smartphone technology has developed over the last sort of 4 or 5 years?
It just doesn't scratch the itch for me. Like if I'm bringing the Ricoh, the little one, it's for pure enjoyment for me and for nothing else. And I enjoy taking the pictures in RAW. I enjoy importing them into Lightroom. I enjoy then seeing what I can get out of the files and creating the look that I want. That whole part of the process is what I enjoy from it. It's why I own the camera as well. And if I'm ever going out riding on a dirt bike or mountain bike, I always have to have a camera with me. And this Ricoh GR4 is so small. You can put it in the hydration pack. You can put it in your pocket. It's great.
Well, that sort of feeds really into sort of my last question for you, Rob. And that don't take this the wrong way, but are you a better photographer than you are a post-production creative? Because we know the possibilities of, I mean, you talked a bit about AI earlier, but with apps like Lightroom, Photoshop, whatever, tickles your fancy, you can drastically alter the image that you've taken. So do you need to be kind of a dual sort of craftsman, really?
Do you need to? Not necessarily. I think there are people out there who are better photographers first and they're very good at like posing the subject, directing the scene, setting things up exactly how they want. And then you get some people who that comes a bit later on. And that, I think that's, for me, I was a nerd first, if that makes sense. So I'll hold my hands up and say that, you know, I'm not perhaps your typical purist photographer. I'm still learning and I'm still trying to get better at that side of it. And that part still scares me the most, you know, when I've got to like run a whole shoot and I'm directing it, and you've got to come up with the concept and you've got to set up all the lighting and then direct the talent, all that sort of thing. That's something which is still scary to me and still something I'm trying to get better at and still try and learn. And then the editing side of it is super enjoyable. I love it, but that's not the same for everybody. Like we mentioned Cormac earlier. I feel like his racecraft, the way he can kind of understand how a race is unfolding and capture the right moments, you know, in camera, is second to none. And he impresses me all the time, the way he'll come away with something which really meant something from the race. And that's not something which I'm particularly good at.
Fair enough. Dave, Neil, I think we're pretty much done with our interrogation, right? I mean, I think it's been a very...
bad. Have I talked too much?
No, not at all. I think it's been a really sort of insightful and revealing podcast, if I'm honest.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it's one of those things where people think so much of this is easy, especially like photography. Like, all I need to do is, you know, buy a nice camera and that'll be it. As you were saying earlier on, you know, it's all done in the camera now, so you don't even need to do anything else. But that's like about 1% of it, really. So much of it is about planning and about understanding what customers need, what clients need, what everyone needs in terms of it. And
you have to be like quite personable and good to work with, right? There's no point in being the best photographer in the world, but an arse to work with. Doesn't help.
But that's why it's nice being a journalist for me.
Yeah, that blacklist. Love the blacklist.
Exactly.
Listen, Rob, thanks ever so much for your time, mate. We obviously see each other every other weekend, but you know, having you sort of actually having time to talk, because I mean, when you were explaining the working processes of a weekend, you were not exaggerating whatsoever. I mean, it can actually be hard to have a conversation that's longer than "Hello, how are you doing?" At a Grand Prix. So this has been great. I think also for people that, you know, have an interest in photography, have an interest in MotoGP, then it's you know, it's I think it's been quite revealing. So thanks very much.
My pleasure. I'd be happy to do it any time. Although next time I'd like a bit more abuse. Like it doesn't feel like the real working environment yet.
We're saving it up for Aragon.
Okay, I'm gonna bring some special abuse for you, Dave.
All right.
Kind of spruce up our personalities a little bit in this podcast, Rob. We're not the complete reprobates that we are in real life when it's recording. Yeah, I
see. I wondered why you were so different. No, thank you, boys. It's been really good, and I hope I didn't talk for too long.
No problem. Thanks, Rob. Dave, Neil, enjoy your free weekend. Dave, I might catch you at the MXGP of the Netherlands this weekend near Arnhem. Other than that, it's all roads to Aragon. We'll be back next week with our next show previewing the latest round of MotoGP.